stream, so thank God we were under, we were able to stretch a tarp across, so. And then, I camped the next two times and
We just
the rain last two.
So.
Cause her name's Liz.
So we. I took.
Could have been.
One more.
You guys said it was, yeah, last minute, so I made copies. And I think you get the drop.
Jerry, how are you?
Yes, all right.
Not coming tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it. I'm just.
Or any guy. He's like, man, I'm sorry.
Gotta
Just
behave
realize-
live.
We did-
Preliminary plans.
Son is.
He's been promoted.
Yeah, he's been promoted to the next meeting. It's it is a demotion.
So I can like. The option.
2 days a week. I'm 90% back.
It was actually.
I need to stay home. I stay.
Maxed out.
There he is.
Okay, enjoy that. Do software development.
Then they can use the shop.
So come back and.
Come out with something. They brought it down. It's really, they don't have to put that one aside.
She wants to do, we're gonna retire.
The extra weight, so. All right, moving ahead, go.
They drop it.
But it's about a quarter inch.
My beans in the pot.
And the order captain shot. Came with a kid. So. They messed it all. So I'm waiting on.
Background, was there?
It's in right now.
More we see that, look, it's like, wow.
Stockish, but.
He likes the color.
What?
That'd be radio.
On the stock market back on? Because they didn't have the projects. They didn't have the shots.
System, so it.
Anyway,
Like, I mean, you put an extra on there.
But in the meantime,
I'm waiting for extra software. Like
different offset and fix that. No.
This is something I do.
enough to be dangerous. I just,
You're more in the picture.
At least
I'm
that's.
more- I'm like you're.
I'm just gonna.
Actually build something else. Back up again.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Those are not the control. What we other get? I got it from,
Can't build a whole.
yeah.
Well, here's my page. Like, you know, it's.
Yeah, I like this.
Everybody get real.
They're a little bummed.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of silver in them. It's too gaudy.
You know what, they're really a big fog.
All right, let's go ahead and get started this evening. City of Centerton Planning Commission, March 21st, 2023 with a roll call.
Jeff Safar,
I'm here.
Joey Engel,
Here.
Devin Murphy, Craig Langford, Jerry Harris, Don Customs,
Here.
Ben Lewis, Tony Davis, Brandon Swoboda.
First thing on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from 3/7 of 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes from 3/7/23.
Second. Motion is second. Is anyone opposed? All right, first thing on the agenda this evening, under new business is a public hearing. This is for rezone 2301. Regional Warehouse of NWA requesting a rezone from A1 to C2. It's at 12921 Bush Road. 6.3 acres. The owner is Regional Warehouse of NWA with the engineers of Bates and Associates. Is the applicant here to give us an overview of what you're requesting?
Hi, my name is Mark War, and we contracted with Studio 6 and Blue and Associates to build an RV park for our existing land in Centerton. We have 6.3 acres, about 2 of it's a fenced-in warehouse, and what we'd like to do is take the additional 4 acres towards the back and turn them into a 95-inch unit out on the storage park. Won't be for residential, just out of the actual units themselves. Any other questions about that I can answer for you?
Not yet. Thanks. Eric, do you want to give us a staff overview?
Yeah, so there's a typo on the agenda. It should be Blue and Associates, not Bates Associates. The applicant submitted a rezone request from A1 to C2 on a 6.3 acre tract on Bush Road. In 2013, the city did a courtesy review for the development of the existing warehouse to be an online auction house. The warehouse existed when the tract was split in 2016. for the track split plat. To split 17.93 acres to the south. And then the property was annexed in 2017. And we don't really know what the current use of the building is. But their intention is to develop a RV storage on the site. So the proposed zoning intends to have businesses that are dedicated, that are suited towards highway traffic, such as service stations, drive-in restaurants, motels, supermarkets, and similar businesses. C2 zoning contains the highest uses of commercial zoning districts, but less intense than the industrial zoning. Bush Road is designated as a major collector on the MSP. It's currently a 2-lane road with improvements made by their surrounding subdivisions of Prairie Brook, Silverleaf, and Edgewood estates. So there will also be improvements for this property once a development plan is submitted. The Master Trails plan calls for a 10-foot side path on Bush Road. There is currently one on Silverleaf. There's water available along Bush and Edgewood Road. The property currently has a septic system with the capacity and connection to there will be connections to be put in on the developing subdivision, so a connection to the sewer is possible. The proposed rezone will take place in the land use, what the land use plan currently deems as low medium density residential, and that consists of detached residential homes with an overall density of 3 to 7 units per acre. The overall lot size and density may vary from one part of the community to another. Low medium density neighborhoods should remain the predominant form of the residential development in Centerton. So this wouldn't really be a consistent rezone due to the fact that it doesn't meet much of the following implementation items. One, it doesn't necessarily encourage regional commercial development around major roadways to capitalize on accessibility to consumers and high traffic flows under C2. And then the other is to encourage compatible business near residential neighborhoods to increase accesses to service and utilities. How it does, however, what remains consistent is it does allow nearby commercial centers for goods and services to meet the needs of seniors and supports aging in place. It also focuses on short-term investment on infill to avoid significant investment in capital improvements and greenfield areas. So the property is currently surrounded mostly by medium-high density residential subdivisions. Across Bush Road to the north are Prairie Brook and Silverleaf. Prairie Brook being 4.75 units per acre and Silverleaf being 3.79 units per acre. Both subdivisions zoned R3SF. To the southwest is Edgewood Estates, which is an R3SF zone about 3.58 units per acre. Abutting the west property line is nearby to the east is Cameron, which is 2.6 units per acre. And then there's various agricultural tracks scattered around the nearby area. So a C2 would be considered intended to use for the surrounding neighborhood and therefore being compatible with surrounding uses. Screening, lighting and noise reductions should be considered if the zone is approved and the development plans will be submitted.
Any questions from any of the commissioners before we open it up to the public?
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for rezone 2301.
John second.
With a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, we're now open to the public. If there's anyone that wishes to speak, whether it be a question, comment, or any concerns in regards to the rezone that's before us this evening, we'd ask that you come to the podium. We ask that you state your name and address. Then you can address the planning commission. Second call for anyone that wishes to speak. And third and final call for anyone who wishes to speak on the rezone before us this evening.
It's Jerry. I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Joey, a second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there anyone that's opposed? Let's go through the questions that we need to consider that may spark some discussion amongst the commissioners. First thing that we need to consider is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan. If not, why? And I think this one is pretty clear that it is not consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan. Does anybody disagree with that or have any discussion? Is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones? I'm leaning towards no because of the potential intensity of a commercial development right in the middle of the, there's housing that's around, but it's certainly open for discussion from the commissioners or anything like that.
I would agree with you.
I agree.
Would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and the surrounding areas? There is a list of the permitted uses in the highway commercial for your reference, if you wanted to take a peek. I do think that there are some. I'm not sure that everything in this particular location would fall into that.
Fuel station, pawn shop, restaurant one really makes sense.
Yeah, it's not at a major intersection or anything. It just kind of sits along the road in between all of the housing. But again, I wouldn't say all the permitted uses, but some of them would be. Does anybody disagree with that or have any discussion? Would the rezoning provide a benefit to a single landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? I know we always have discussions on this one and whether it actually provides a benefit to the one landowner. We would go through the same consideration as the way that I always look at these for properties that is in this area. And so I don't think it provides a single benefit. I think that, we would consider it and certainly open it up to discussion for any of the commissioners. And then the last question, if the public is opposed, why? And there were no objections or questions or comments from any of the public.
I would say with that,
you know, the notifications go out to nearby residents and. Most of that is vacant subdivisions. So.
Fair enough.
Any additional questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we consider the rezone request for us? If not, then I would entertain a motion for rezone 2301 Regional Warehouse of NWA. Again, the request is from A1 to C2. It is a 12,921 Bush Road.
This John, I'll motion to approve rezone 2301 Regional Warehouse NWA.
Tony, a second.
Motion and a second. Caleb, if you'll do a roll call for me, please.
Tony Davis,
No.
John Sessoms,
No.
Craig Langford,
No.
Joey Engel,
No.
Jerry Harris,
No.
Ben Lewis.
No.
Jeff Safarth,
And I'm a no as well. I think compatibility, I think you have to provide them with a letter of compatibility. And based on the land use plan would be the two biggest reasons for the no. Thank you, guys. All right, next on the agenda this evening is development 2209. It is Domino's Pizza, it's lot 4, block 2, Ridgefield edition, so it's on Highway 102. It's at the corner of West Centerton Boulevard and Monroe. It's just over, it's 1.8 acres and it is zone C2. And is the applicant here to give us an overview? Let's move it over. They are, yeah.
Evening, I'm Josh Collins with Anderson Engineering. This one went before planning commission back in December and was approved. They wanted to come back and make a few changes. Most notably, they want to go for a more conventional detention pond over on the east side of the property now. Went through a couple rounds. I know there were some more comments, either in the last week or earlier this week, and I believe they've been addressed as of today. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm here if y'all have any questions. Or answer any questions either one. Thank y'all.
Good, thanks. Taylor, are you doing the overview?
So this project was previously approved on December 6th of 2022. Sorry for my typo. However, the developer has proposed that the site be shifted from the east corner of the lot to the west middle lot. And they're no longer splitting it, so it's going to remain one parcel for now. So we're going to go through a few things that you guys probably know from last time. There's water and sanitary sewer available along West Centerton Boulevard. They are doing a detention pond on the eastern side of the property. For the adjacent street agreement, right of way was already dedicated via track split ES 2226, which was like a small property split. They don't need to dedicate any more right of way. They will be proposing a 5-foot sidewalk, street trees, and street lights along Monroe. And then because of the widening of Centerton Boulevard, for RDOT, staff recommend a 5-foot sidewalk along Centerton Boulevard instead of the typical 10-foot, as well as street trees and street lights. In terms of access and future connectivity, one entrance is proposed off of West Centerton Boulevard. And when we went back and looked at this, we made sure it lined up with the proposed Harps entrance, so we're not having left turn conflicts. And then we've got one entry on Monroe. And then we made sure to ask the developer to provide stub outs on all 4 corners of the lot because it's a middle lot, so that the 2 lots next to them have access to those 2 entrances, so we're not getting a bunch of entrances off of Centerton Boulevard. And then in terms of lighting, they've got 2 new street lights on Centerton Boulevard. One being at the intersection of Monroe and Centerton Boulevard. They have to do a little offset due to, I think, a power pole that's over there. And then my comment said that we wanted to see a light on the Monroe entrance, and that it's a new submittal that they gave us today. They did for that. So we've got that. We've got street trees and parking lot islands. They did provide screening along the dumpster and the southern side of the property. on my last round of comments, I asked for even more landscaping. So they get further with the more landscaping they give us, so.
And this is the most current landscaping one up here.
Yes.
So
This is the-
today, this is the most current one, the one that's up here now.
We made sure one of the entrances on the south of the building, that was a whole bunch of concrete, so we made sure to ask them to give us any amount of landscaping they should give us around the building. So we got that little pocket island with a. So most of our remaining comments are about the landscaping plan. And making sure that there's enough buffering around that dumpster and that southern line. Other than that, there's just some minor comments regarding labeling and landscaping, and the paint striping comment was addressed with their latest submittal as well. So we'd like to recommend approval contingent on the remaining staff comments and whatever you guys add to the landscaping.
Where did you say that, how it lined up with the Harps entrance? Yeah, across the
Yeah,
street.
right there, that line, that's gonna be the Harps entrance.
This is an old existing drop.
That was, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna-
That'll,
yeah, they'll be
That'll-
getting rid of all of those extra.
That'll be the eastern drive for Harps, right? And then the roundabout will be to the west a little bit.
a bit further west.
So the only thing, and first of all, I'm so proud of you right now. Second of all,
He promoted you, I mean.
the one thing I don't see on here, and maybe it's in the plan somewhere else, but on the sheets we have, I don't see any access easements called out across.
They don't actually need an access easement across that lot anymore.
Oh, it's just gonna be one lot, right?
And I split it.
What about to the west?
Dump.
Right, but if that's the main entrance for that building in the future, probably need something there. And then it makes sense to get it going to the east as well,
Yeah.
just because that's gonna split and
Yeah.
do something else. That's the only thing I saw. Thank you for the landscaping. Looks good. Deliveries, I assume they're just gonna go out to Monroe.
If they're. No, I don't think they'll be able to, because if they're pulling in. Right, I mean, they'll have to back out and then come out here.
Thinking of coming in here, coming around the back and just.
Parking is on they've designated the east side for delivery,
Oh, I didn't. see
according to this, I mean.
Yeah, the
I
delivery.
know we've got two different plans, but the delivery designation is on that right-hand side. So they would back out and then go out to, to 102. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I'm sure you'll look at dumpster enclosure, right? Okay. I think it looks good. Just the access easements, how y'all wanna handle that?
If there's no additional comments, then I want to entertain a motion for development 2209. Domino's large scale development.
So on a motion to approve development 2209 Domino's large scale development, pending satisfaction of staff comments.
Second. Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Good luck. All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 2119, Amba Estates. They're requesting an extension. This is at 8660 North Rainbow Farm Road. It's 23 duplex lot, 7.89 acres. It is zoned R3 D. Is the, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Great.
I'm sure I go with half.
Representing the owner.
You want an extension?
Yeah, due to several factors with the Department of Health approval, getting agreements between other landowners and subdivisions, the lift station. Extensions.
All right. Any objection from staff? I don't know who this is. It doesn't have a name on it. Any objection?
Yes.
You have an objection?
No.
Okay. Any questions from any of the commissioners?
You gonna get an ADH extension too, I assume. I see that mentioned in here. I didn't.
Well, just with what's going on with the Department of Health, actually, the lift station is progressing through the Department of Health. But then with the complications of Centerton and the Department of Health, and then just all the other factors. That I think being addressed.
If there's no other comments, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2119, request for an extension.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve the request for extension for subdivision 2119 Amby Estates for 1 year. Craig, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Thanks, sir. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 2217, The Landing. This is a preliminary plat at 8931 Greenhouse Road. 40 lots, 10.27 acres. It is zoned R3 single family. And the applicant is Roth and engineers Bates and Associates. Jeff, what do you got for us?
Y'all have seen this one at Bates and Associates. Y'all have seen this one a few times and we read through all staff comments and ready to move forward. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any changes from what we saw last time? I know we were talking about building forward section, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything any different.
I think there are a few changes that
That was the last thing y'all saw.
It's been a
I changed it a couple times.
We've had a bunch of back and forth with the public and citizens coming.
Yeah, I think there are some changes, so. Diane, do you wanna?
This one is Kayla.
Spearheaded, Diana's gonna back me up. Okay. So this is located between Creekside Phase 1 and Quail Ridge Phase 1. It was previously rezoned from A1 to R3 SF. There is an approved PUD because this had the unique shape. It's 0.63 acres of it are in the floodplain. And there was a really unique circumstance of them giving us a lot of right of way. So that PUD was approved September 20th of 2022. So for density per the PUD, their maximum density can only be 3.94 units per acre, and their current proposed has a density of 3.84 units per acre. Per the PUD, no less than 27% of the development could be open space, and they're currently proposing 30%. For parking, they had to provide 2 covered, 2 uncovered, and they are meeting that as well. For Centerton water, that's available along Greenhouse. Sanitary sewer is being proposed to connect to a manhole offsite to the north side of the property. And that offsite sewer connection won't require an easement because it's on city property. And the public has addressed some concerns about messing up that natural preserve. It's part of the preserve. There is already a sewer line that preserve, and they would just be connecting to it. They 0.63 acres of this is contained within the floodplain, and a floodplain permit was submitted on 3/14. It's being reviewed currently. They also were required to submit a wetlands assessment. We haven't yet received it, so any approval will have to be contingent on receiving that. For drainage, there's a retention pond proposed on the west end of the property adjacent to the floodplain. There's 1 minor comment remaining about the pond. Other than that, staff approves it. For the adjacent street agreement, they've got proposed Buckhorn Flats Road. It's a minor arterial, and on the master street plan, it's proposed along the south side of this development. But the city asked the developer to move that minor arterial to the north side due to the proposed widening of Greenhouse Road and the way that things ended up lining up. So they're gonna be giving it has a full right of way of 80 feet, and all 80 feet will be dedicated with the development. They will be completing full widening of the road, curb and gutter on their side, and then they'll also be doing the 10-foot trail and street lights. And street trees, of course. And then for Greenhouse Road, it's a major arterial with a 100-foot right of way, so they'll be dedicating the 50 feet of right of way and then doing street lights and street trees. Other improvements will be completed with the Greenhouse Road Improvement Project. Staff was in favor of not requiring any fee in lieu for the greenhouse improvements because they're doing the full 80 feet of dedication and improvements. So there is a trail on the master trails plan, McKissick Springs Loop. It's proposed along Greenhouse Road. And then there's also a little bit of it on Buckhorn Flats Road. And there's also a proposed 10-foot side path along the west side of the property, traveling that northeast southwest along the creek. As for landscaping, a point of contention. They are proposing 45 scarlet oak trees to be planted along the frontages of Buckhorn Flats and Greenhouse Road. 40 of those are on Buckhorn Flats Road. And that's gonna be one per lot because the lots are 35-foot wide. And after we looked at the plans, that seemed like enough trees. I do know the standard is 20 linear foot per tree, or like 1 tree per linear foot. But that comes out to 80 trees along that length, and that just seemed like a wild number for those lots. And then for Greenhouse Road, for our standard, they would need 12 trees, but they're currently proposing 5. And their tree preservation intent is to preserve as many trees as possible and then plant 1 tree per lot. Answer any questions?
The only question I have on that, have we looked at trees on the north side of Buckhorn? I know we're keeping some, but I don't know what kind of shape they're in. I don't know what they are. There's a pretty large expanse with no sort of trees up there, and I thought it might be well received and beneficial for those neighbors to the north. Just thinking through that.
That's their tree preservation plan.
Well, I see some that have big X's in them, so I assume those are going away.
Yeah, some of them.
And that's also whenever the road is widened in the future, that's the way that it's gonna go. When it's widened to a full collector length, you know, the center turn lane. And then everything on that north.
So we've offset it so we can go back to the north with the widening and hold the southern line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
The other comment I had is I have not seen the greenhouse plans. But from what I know, there was a potential of additional right of way that needed to be acquired on the west side of greenhouse. I don't know what that number is. I'm not sure anybody knows what that number is right now. But Jeff, looking at your stacking on your exit out on the greenhouse, I was wondering, if it would make more sense to kind of extend that right now. So when greenhouse does come through, you don't lose like, I don't know, 30-40% of that stacking. Good. Didn't really affect anything. That makes sense to me, but just want to throw it out there.
With the greenhouse expansion, they're still working through the 30% plans. Big thing that changed a lot from last time was that the road was on the south. It's on the north now. Had it remained on the south, there's a traffic light proposed at Quail Ridge as part of that expansion. Putting on the south side would have put the access road 100 and some feet from that intersection. Just wasn't conducive for safety and people getting it out of it as it was. So we'll flip to the north side. It won't have left turn out from there. Not when greenhouse expands. Because it's gonna be a divided highway, so it's gonna actually end up blocking that or on the left turn. Backing onto, not sure what Quail Ridge is on the other side of greenhouse.
Do we even need I guess in the short term, until that's done, the left turn would be nice.
Correct, and part of it is there's flexibility on that turning. But the worry is with that divider going in. Trying to see where that stacking goes with that. Are we gonna push it back? I mean, like I said, that's part of where we're at 30%.
You have no need for the 3 turns on the greenhouse if there's a median. So you would just go back to 2 lane, right?
Yeah, and that's where you were asking to stack it back.
Right.
And
I forgot about the median.
it works though if it does, because then you can actually put a barrier in there to, so that it's clearly obvious it's only right in, right out. So I would recommend still maintaining the.
Well, I think you can keep it how it is, and then when greenhouse comes in, maybe you can do a median to make up the difference in on this road.
Yeah.
And 2 lane. Jeff, I guess you're good. I guess you're good how you are. I forgot about the median.
The other part was with moving it north, in order to put it on the south, it was originally planned. there was at least 2 or 4 homes that would have been completely taken out in order to put a roundabout in order to even try to tie that road in. So
When we moved it north, does that do anything to the creek crossing?
in the future for tying into Buckhorn Flats. Any kind of bridge actually gets longer just to make that move back to the south, but it doesn't actually change.
The other thing, and I think it's fair to waive the greenhouse requirements because you're building a whole road, but. You know, it stops short. What's the plan on that? We use that as a transition to tie back in. With Buckhorn. continue?
I mean, it stopped short.
I don't think it goes to the end of the property.
It doesn't tie back in at the end.
That's the creek. That's where.
That's where the
creek
bridge
is.
would end up starting.
You'd have to make that connection.
Okay. And we're
Stopped at floodplain.
good with it. Okay. That's a logical place to stop it.
Yeah, 'cause that's where the bridge would end up starting, so.
Yes.
Bring that up.
Mayor Bill?
I just wanted to ask, I've received phone calls on this. I did. Since it came in so late, I did print you one resident concerns, which is pretty much a consensus of most of the residents that I've heard from is the same concerns. The only thing I asked though too is apparently there was a sign posted on the property. And I think maybe, I'm not sure, I didn't look at their address, but I think some of these are residents there and they thought there might be a public hearing or they'd be able to offer any other public concerns due to the sign that was posted. I don't know if it was a public hearing sign or not. I wasn't
Public
there.
notice.
It's a public notice.
Okay, but, you know, anyway, I think what I wrote you pretty well sums up what their concerns were. And I just want, if you wanted to ask them if they had any other additional. That's all I had.
Thanks, Mayor. So the one letter came from, looks like from Michael Merritt. 3 pieces or 3 things that were shared. One was the nature preserve. Was there an alteration to the nature preserve as part of it? So there was really no change in that. That was one of the concerns that was brought up. Safety, I mean, this has already been approved. But of course, traffic was one of the concerns that was brought up. That was part of the concerns that were brought up whenever it was approved. And then still question about property value. But again, this was approved. We of course can't dictate what they use for the outside of the homes. In regards to that, that some people would think would impact a home value. Those were the 3 concerns that were brought up by Michael. It looks like it may have been on a part of the Creekside homeowners, if I'm reading this correctly. We will allow open comments. Keep in mind that this has been approved from a single family home development. It has been approved. We went through that process. If you have some concerns or comments in regards to the development that they have proposed, then we will take those at this time. So if you'd like to speak to the commission, we'd ask that you state your name and your address, and then any questions or comments that you have in regards to the development plan that's being presented.
I'm Jeff Parker, 10699 Buckhorn Flats Road. And I'm representing 10603 Buckhorn Flats Road also. Just found out about this from Michael. We didn't get another letter or anything addressing this. So a couple big questions I have is what are your plans on when you do connect Holloway, Buckhorn and Greenhouse together? What's your plans to go through my property? You know, changing the road from where it was at to where you're putting it massively increases y'all's cost.
We're not paying for that particular road. The developer is putting in
No, I meant in the future. Has that been addressed?
as far as what? So did you get to hear what Craig or what Alan said as far as the reason it was changed? It's really based on the future of what we do know about
Greenhouse.
Greenhouse Road. So that's the reason that the request was to change it to the north instead of on the south when we originally saw it, which was a proposal. It wasn't necessarily, we didn't approve it back then on the north side or the south side. It was simply just a preliminary, maybe an idea, which we see whenever they present projects to us. We don't always see that. And this one, we happen to see that, but based on going back to the engineer and what we know, then that's the reason it switched to the north side.
So the plans are, you're trying to get them finalized, right?
They're asking for us to approve these tonight, yes.
Yes. So wouldn't you take all that into account?
We did take that into account, or we will, yes, based on our engineers' guidance, if you will, as to where the best placement is for that particular road.
It just doesn't make any common sense to me. I mean, you know, even if I did want to sell my property, which it's gonna have to be eminent domain, because that's not gonna happen. And two, why would, so one, you're rendering another piece of property almost useless, which was say mine. Because now you're going to have to run a road and split it, it's gonna be about the same shape as that. And if you are gonna develop it, it's gonna have to be as congested as that for the future.
Are you
Just
talking,
because you're gonna run the.
are you talking about a greenhouse?
No, I'm talking about Buckhorn Flats Road to Buckhorn Flats Road, because if you draw that line right there, it goes straight through my house. Then it'll curve to meet Buckhorn, or if you even curve it on the property adjacent to mine on the east side.
We don't know when that road's gonna be finalized. It's not like we're planning to make that full connection right now. So I understand your concerns when your house lines up with it. Likely that won't happen until you decide to sell or develop that property. And just like this, we'll consider where the road goes at that time. And you know, let's say you do sell your property, somebody's probably gonna develop it and put a bunch of lots on it like that, so they'll design around that to carry that road through.
You know, took all that into consideration also when you moved all this. Cause you know, it was supposed to be, you know, a split minor arterial, right? With the median center divider, 100-foot access down. Against the north side.
I don't know the specific section on
That's what
the
it was.
street section.
First time we came. And that's when they were building the homes. Can y'all pull up the map for the trailway? And everything they want to do? How is it gonna?
Plans?
No, the plans that y'all have currently for the Greenway. That was planned to go through there.
Or
Master Trails
Yeah,
plan.
Master Trails plan. Master Street plan too.
It'll take us just a moment to go gather
I
that.
know Bentonville made their connection all the way up in the greenhouse, and they're wanting to. I guess eventually proceed with it the rest of the way, which would run down through here.
on a layer. The master street plan is also under there.
So you're just west of the creek?
What's that?
Are you just west of the creek?
Yeah, my house is about. So that property is. Kind of like perpendicular with mine. So that's your plans right there for the trail.
That's the master trail, yes.
Has it been finalized?
Master trail plan?
Not a project.
Yeah, it's a plan.
It's a general
Oh, just.
patient.
Now, as far as greenhouse. What are the future plans for it? How soon is that gonna happen? Because right now, I mean, we see it every day. We almost have to dodge cars on a daily basis. It is chaos trying to get our kids to school. We're trying to just commute that road, period. And if you're gonna add this many more houses to it. Is there any laws or anything set up to where the congestion problems should be addressed before
No, sir.
it's built?
There's not, and I don't know, Alan, if you want to address, I mean, at least 3, maybe 5 years, I think was the discussion when we were here.
That's a massive concern. I mean, if y'all driven that,
Yeah, greenhouse is in the process of being designed and expanded. But these do take a long time, with the amount of rules that they have to go through. But right now, the plans aren't even completed with it yet. And then once those are through, they can start working on the utility relocations and then the actual widening of that road. So by the time it's all said and done, you're still looking at years down the road. It's gonna be earliest probably, depends on how easily the utilities are relocated.
It's also a joint project between Centerton.
Centerton, Bentonville.
There's a lot of
and the
moving
counties
parts on it.
departments. So a lot going through getting those updates. And that's why the design has to account for that. That's why had that gone on the south, which was your original question, it would have made the greenhouse road expansion not possible. It on its own would have made big enough hassle to where there would have been no way to connect without someone needing to go through the Hosta Queller's tie in or.
Put a roundabout there now?
Yeah, that's actually gonna be a stoplight there, so when Kimmel had the road not moved, would they be able to tie that in? The only way to make it even possible tie in would have been a roundabout, and that's where you would have been losing. At minimum 2, but probably 5 homes, 6 homes would have. Had been lost, destroyed just to do that. That's why the road got moved for that planning for that.
I understand that.
So. And like I said, where the trail is, it's the road stopping well before that to be able to make that bend. I'm glad that wasn't. To tie into Buckhorn Flats on the south side of your property. That'll be accounted for if and when you ever sell and that develops to get that road extended so we can get that connection. But that trail is in the middle of that low spot. Going over that wouldn't affect the trail either, if that was one of your concerns. Just because of how high that bottom of the road would have to be with that floodway.
Even that, it still needs to be, if you've been back there, it turns into a river. I mean, all in my head. It needs to be more forward. Unless you're gonna have to just build a massive bridge all the way across the whole thing.
Pretty much.
That's what they'd have to do.
Really all I got.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Michael Merritt. I'm the one that sent the email. So I wanted to clarify a few points. I live at 1240 Elizabeth, so that's the second. Concern there. On the first one, the nature preserve, my main concern was there is a bit of alteration in running the sewer line on that property. I did have an opportunity to talk to the surveyors that were out there as they were doing the survey, and they talked that 15 to 20 feet off of the property lines, there was going to be construction to be able to place that. And I think it's also here, as long as I'm reading it correctly, trees that will be removed. And so there are quite a few trees on that property. Some specifically, they'll even be behind my house that are going to be removed. And so there's been a lot of established trees going through that area. So that was my main concern there, that is a green space and that we're conscious and making sure that we're limiting the amount of construction that would be going through that area. And if there's alternatives in how that can be ran, rather than taking out nature that be back there and impacting the wildlife that's back there as well, because there's a lot of deer and other animals that come through there. The second piece, I know it's already been approved, but safety is a huge concern. If you have not tried to turn out of our neighborhood there on Ella Place in the morning during school drop off, I can sit there at that stop sign for 5 minutes some days, just trying to get out. And I have serious concerns of, as my kids get older and being able to drive and being able to make that turn. I understand it's 3 to 5 years away, but there's plans for that. I have very strong concerns on the amount of homes and the amount of traffic that'll be increased there, not only through this location, but also the apartments that are being placed at the end of Greenhouse as well. On the third point, it was specifically the homes and how far west of the units that they're being placed is going to extend past the home line that is within Creekside, if I'm reading the map correctly. And so these furthest units here to the west are going to be looking directly into the backyard of other existing homeowners. And so that was part of my concern of how much screening is going to be planted or kept there, which I know is at least mentioned a little bit earlier, but making sure there is a screen or being able to potentially pull those units back for consistency that we have with the existing home development that's there.
Well, you can see the trees proposed.
Those are existing.
And those are existing.
They're gonna remain.
Well, you've got the existing, then you have.
Oh, in front of the houses?
Yeah, there's a tree per lot on that side.
Jeff, is the front of the house facing south?
Yes. No, the rear is.
Okay, and then the axe of the drive or the garage is from the
Garage
south?
should be on the back, on the south end.
So that's my concern. You can see the line right there. That would be the last property line. And so those last two units are gonna be looking directly into the backyards of existing homes.
It's like the property actually goes further west than Creekside, if that's the last lot in Creekside. I mean,
So that's my point.
but I mean, that's their property that they purchased. It's a different shape than Creekside, so, I mean, that's.
And so my answer there is
That.
privacy that's anything there, but also a value is that it is very close getting into that floodplain and making sure that it's not getting to that floodplain as well. Because definitely from experience like Jeff, it is a wetland and it gets extremely wet. It does flood very often. There's been a couple of years, I mean, we've been at Creekside, those homes have only been there for 3 years, and I have seen that water level rise very close to our house, all the way at the backside of that Creekside property line.
You have all the measurements, don't you, Jeff, of where all that is? And then they do have to work with the city in regards to the wetlands and the applications and things like that before they go
And the state
touch anything.
and federal.
Any questions for me? Thank you.
So thank you.
Hey, I'm Kelsey Lyons. I live at 1290 Elizabeth Loop. We're on the other side. We're one of those properties where the houses are looking into our backyard now. On the landscaping at code, it says that there would be 80 trees, but the staff felt like 35 would be enough to cover. I just wanted to know why you're looking at 80 trees, you wouldn't put 80 trees back.
I don't
I
think
don't know
they're
that-
taking 80.
Removing 80 trees. We've got a draft landscape code that proposes so many trees per footage along the road for street
No,
trees.
I meant like the existing trees on your list. I think 87 were being removed. It was code to put 80 in based on that.
It's not actually.
It's not covered, it has not been adopted.
Okay.
It's in a draft form that still needs a little bit of work, and then it goes to the public. And then if we approve it, then the city council has to approve it as well.
It was just.
Today, it's a suggestion. Today, it's a suggestion, and we ask for those things, but we can't require them to necessarily do it.
The other part is that when that road gets expanded, it's gonna go north. I don't know how much green space would be left.
I don't see that ever being expanded north.
I thought you said that.
I don't see it
There
just because.
there should still be enough space that there's can be trees planted by the city in that. On the north
City or rock.
Yeah, that's.
You look
That'd
at-
be city right of way.
If you look at most of the trees being removed are where the homes are gonna go. And then they're adding trees back in front of the homes.
They're adding half of what they're taking.
I don't believe they're taking 80. What was referenced in the report was that's what the draft landscape ordinance would have called for. And they thought that was a lot. Now, I don't disagree with you because I brought that up very first, that maybe some trees on the north side of that road would help. It would be more directly in, closer to those existing homes. We can let Jeff or the developer talk about that if they'd like, but.
And then I do have a follow-up question on where the street lamps would go. Would they go?
Shown on the north side.
Many trees would also help us from having street lamp, that black circle directly over our backyard. I had.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on putting, Hey, Jeff. What are y'all's thoughts on putting some trees on that north side? I'm trying to count the number of lots.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
North side of Buckhorn.
Adding some trees on the north side of Buckhorn for the existing residents. Because she did make a very good point about the streetlights, one, and then two, it just helps screen.
Yeah, we were gonna, of course, we're not gonna take out any trees if we don't have to.
Right.
And then from the back of our house to the south, we're 80 feet to Quill Ridge property line, and I think we're from the front to the north. Front of the house to the north, we're 100 feet.
And maybe this is a better way to look at it. The south property line has a ton of trees and vegetation on it. The north, we're taking out 4 or 5, but there's some large gaps where there aren't any trees.
And they're gonna be putting in lights there.
Where the lights are going. How would you feel about filling in, some of those areas where there aren't any existing trees with?
If we've got to if we gotta, put a few trees in, I'm not gonna, I'm all about that. We'll do our best to not take any out. I mean, we really work, unless it's just what we call a scrub tree, an old broke down elm tree or something like that, that's not gonna live and cause everybody problems later, but any type of nice tree, we're gonna do our best to try to keep that, so.
Just so not.
Joey,
Just in that gap space on the north behind those 2 streetlights right there.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
one thing that we had talked about with this road is that the city gets trees donated to them and the Public Works Department, that this would be a great place for them to be able to put those trees. So that's what we were talking about doing. Then we can put them where we want after everything gets in and.
But in the meantime, I think it would be nice for Jeff where maybe somehow, and I think Joey was gonna point out where the lights are at, right? So is there a way to basically,
This area.
It's for the lights.
Kind of hide some of that light pollution into those.
yeah, there's 1 or 2 more, I think that's on there.
That appeases everybody, then I'm easy.
I think that'll be a good start.
Yeah, then it sounds like we're gonna come in and film. Packet full of trees later. That happens yearly, right?
They're always looking for places to put trees. So.
Plant them right in the disc golf.
Feel some of those there too. Yeah.
That's an easy fix to a lot of problems out there to treat us, so. I'm
Awesome.
I'm good with whatever we need to do to make everybody happy, and we gotta,
Just no pear trees, man.
keep trees in there that.
They're not on there anyway. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Got my allergies all messed up.
Yeah, I have one more question on this, because I'm sitting there, talking about streetlights, and I'm the one that gets all the complaints with the light. These lights they put in now are super bright.
We shield them on the rear?
That's what I was getting ready to ask, if you would. Get with Carol and have them shield them on the north side of the light itself, because it's not, they're gonna shine all.
Will they do that?
Yeah, they will.
No, they won't.
They're doing it for some, we're doing.
I tell you, I fought, and me and Anthony
Anyway,
went
I just wanted to
around Westridge. And the road off of Bush, it goes into Westridge, those lights shined into the back of the Tamaron houses.
Yeah.
And Carroll Electric would not order shields to put on there, so I got up there, put a 30-foot extension ladder in the bed of my truck, leaned it up against that light post, and I got up there and I took some black zip tape. I don't know if you know what zip tape is. That stuff is some bad stuff. And I blacked out the back side of those street lights to where it would not shine in those people's houses. That was how I handled light pollution, as we call it.
Next time you do that, I got a couple more that would be.
You got a couple more you need.
You got the ladder out.
They told me the same thing, like.
They would do it. I mean, they said, well, we can put it up, we'll bring it up for a board and we can vote on it. I'm going, guys, you don't understand. I mean, Anthony was getting heat. He was passing it on to me and I'm like, I'll just do this. I had 6 of them I had to do. As soon as I did that, took care of the problem. That was 3 years ago. And I would do the same thing. I would suggest that I would do the same thing there.
We got 3.
I'd stand a way better chance of taking care of it that way than ever trying to.
You can do it while they haven't put them up first. I think that would probably be a lot easier.
It'd be easier for me, but on my left, they get them up.
Put the wrong side.
Then they'd burn them and then I'd be in trouble. So we would, if somebody complained, Mr. Mayor, would do something that would get the heat off of you. How about that? Anyway, yeah, we'd figure something out.
Imagining you with an extension ladder. The better you pick up.
Oh, let's think about that.
Yeah, well.
My aunt's at 1290 Elizabeth Loop also.
What was your first name, sir?
I some great suggestions that have been tossed around just now on the light pollution, into those housing Creekside and, building, some privacy with trees. When the road was initially discussed on the south end of the property, that was gonna be a bridge. And that was approved at the time trees were talked about, and I think Jeff did say we will plant trees in that right of way in between the road and the neighborhood. So that was a part of the discussion on the initial part. But I think when we move the road, that
Goes with it.
intention ought to follow. Just a couple thoughts of the road not being connected all the way through, as I think Mr. Parker mentioned. That I think is a concern. Some of the exceptions and variances done on this project with regard to fire safety, not having sprinklers, not having 2 points of ingress and egress, were mitigated with the fact that that road would eventually be built. But it doesn't seem that there really is a plan or a timeline or strategy to get that done. So to me, that's something that ought to be weighed for the sake of the residents who live there and in the surrounding houses. And then just with all of the planning still ongoing with Greenhouse Road, those plans aren't finalized. There's two different cities who have to come together and make that happen. It's years away, as we've just talked about. We're making permanent decisions now with this development that are based on future plans that are still very nebulous. I think that makes it hard to make the right choice here. Not that we should make any choice, but with the sewage line expansion down into that property, I don't know, I got here a little bit late. We talked about how many trees would be taken out to make that happen. Trees and green spaces are an asset. I know they don't reflect as cleanly to the city as, hey, we saved 1.2 million on this road development, but you look at litigation on mature trees and things like that lost, and I mean, they're, mature oak trees are worth, $50,000 to $100,000 a piece, and you take out those irreplaceable trees, which are along a part of the nature preserve that's slated to be part of the city's trail system, really one of the only open nature parts of the trail system. I think the city ought to weigh that as, what are we losing in the trade for getting this problem there, I know the PUD's approved, but a lower density development on septic tanks doesn't need a new sewer line run. And we preserve that green space, we preserve those trees.
So if you look right there, if that survey is correct, where they're showing their sewer line going is right between the end of the road and all the trees that you see by the creek.
Off the back of the print, yes, we're not taking any freezer.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two.
Jeff, this sewer line,
Hey, we're not going to argue back and forth. Okay, if you wish to address us, you can address us, but not him. Are we clear? Thank you. Go ahead, Lorraine.
And it's the amount of trees being removed for that sewer line aren't in the plan of the one in the packet, so I don't know the answer to that. I do think it ought to be a consideration. That's the point that I'm making. And I think, of course, as my wife said, I think the number of trees taken out to be similar to the amount of trees that are put back. And I think that 80 trees in the landscaping plan was kind of a coincidence. I counted through the list.
on page 33 of the packet, and there's about 78, 80 trees that are being taken out with this development. So I think those two numbers lining up was a coincidence, but planting some along again, the north side would probably balance that out quite a bit. So those are the concerns that I have, and I appreciate you guys' time.
Lorraine, did you have something?
That's okay. I was trying to get clarification on
Thank you.
the sewer line. Thank you.
One thing I was confused about in the plan with the tree list, I know that they measured a lot of trees that are directly behind the few lots that, or at least right here, at least we're within the back shot of my backyard. Because there are a lot of trees in that area. I'm not sure about the aerial. You can come and look at our backyard, but we essentially have a forest right there. And they were measuring it within the survey. Yes.
You're talking about the trees off of your property, right?
Yeah, through the nature preserve. Can I come show you this? Can I come show this photo?
Sure.
That's a current aerial.
So 15 to 20 feet off of the property line
Mhm.
would be right here. So there's a lot of trees that are coming through here behind everybody's property line.
Mhm.
And so that's the concern. And I don't know if that is documented on where that pipe or that sewer line will go. And I was not sure on the list of trees that said not on property, if those were a part of the tree list or not. But that is our concern in the neighborhood and the people that back up to that property. A lot of people have put non-privacy fences on that back side to be able to enjoy the nature that's there. And they've made that decision when they bought the property and when they moved there and when they built, and the decisions on what they wanted to do with their back fences to enjoy that nature. And so by taking away those trees that would be going through here, again, I don't know the width of what the construction would be. But I know that they mentioned it'd be 15 to 20 foot off the property line, and it would take down a bunch of trees doing that.
Why they're low hammy.
This is also the current aerial.
What's the property on the green? Jeff?
This is the property line right back here.
That's where the sewer is going, about 20 feet off the fence. And it's only 4 inches.
Is it a force main all through there and you're probably gonna go 2 or 3 feet deep? We're looking at like a 12, 15 foot swath.
We're not just gonna go through the 50 feet and clear all the trees out. It's just gonna be a small area to get that force main.
So that's the point of clarification that the neighborhood's looking for, is what is the impact that's gonna be. We understand how far off the property line it's gonna be, but how wide is that construction zone and with the trees that would be taken out? So even though it's 40 feet, and that's, do we know how wide it would be?
Yeah, 15 feet, just enough for a backhoe getting there.
I mean, that's pretty wide with the number of trees that are going
It'd be,
right back there.
You're right there.
looks like a lot of different.
Them trees right there.
So I mean. I don't know what to tell you. This obviously is in the fall when the trees don't have leaves. I can show you pictures of my backyard. You saw the aerial with all the trees that are there. But it's one thing to see it here, it's another thing to stand in that backyard. Is there's hundreds of trees back there.
That off.
Thank you.
I mean, if you just click another house,
Well, parks. There we go. Now we can see.
yeah, there's.
You. What was your question on, in addition to that, Joey? I'm sorry.
Nothing, I was just wanting to see this.
Okay.
Just
You
looking.
can zoom out and follow that way up. I mean, really, it seems like the path of least resistance.
And all that land's been disturbed when Creekside was built.
Right. And I understand if it's in an easement on somebody's property, but this is a completely different property than this one.
Is there anyone else that wishes to address the commission?
Cindy Zimstein, 1093 Main Street. I just wanted to address an issue that this gentleman asked about laws for protecting the roads. This may not be a law, but it is an objective on the comprehensive plan that the commission has been entrusted with. And it's number 5 on the comprehensive plan of the objectives specifically states prioritize land primed for development that takes advantage of the existing infrastructure over the premature development of undeveloped areas or open space to avoid the overextension of services and unnecessary cost increases to the city. So there is an obligation. I know it's already done, but the commission has been entrusted to cover that for the people.
There's also an infill goal on that list as well. That this would meet. To infill properties like this to develop those that are closer and have access to all of those amenities.
Understanding this.
And in this case, we're actually getting a road that's part of the master street plan.
Right, but
So it's a combination of things in regard to that.
you know, I sympathize with you because we're going through the same thing on Main Street. We have way too much traffic. And just don't feel like that's being addressed appropriately.
I mean, there's already plans, they're currently working on plans to expand greenhouse, so.
That's down the road.
There's not much that we can do to speed that up. It's already in process.
And we can't tell people to stop developing necessarily. And so we live to those as best we can. In this case, there's actually 2 that we see that we're actually agreeing to, if you will. That is the infill and the fact that we're going to get an additional road, which is part of our master street plan.
And at the end of the day, Alan, do you know what the trip count is on greenhouse?
Top of my head, no idea.
30, Tony, what did like 30 or 40,000?
It was like 30,000 if I
Trip
remember.
count on greenhouse?
What time of day it is?
Yeah, what's the high number?
Probably 12,000 during the peaking off hour or peak morning time, peak daytime. Evening time.
It's fine.
Divided that.
Yeah.
Down to the south, they're putting in the turn lane. Where the apartments are going through, Greenhouse and 12. So there will be some stacking available. Down on the south part that doesn't have anything to do with this project. That's another. Thing that actually will come before the Greenhouse Road improvements. That intersection at 12 in Greenhouse will be improved before the actual road improvements, but it will tie into the road improvements, so.
But does it all dump into Greenhouse though?
That goes to Highway 12. That's getting people off of greenhouse. So that should help.
It should help. But anyhow, there is something documented that the council is, or the commission is, has been entrusted to take into consideration for these developments.
Thank you. We have something to add.
I was just going to say that statement is referring to these developments that happen in like off on the dirt roads that's disconnected and the extension of utilities and the street improvements all have to be done to get there. So this, yes, like that. See, it's disconnected from what's going on in the city, the central part of the city.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay. No, we don't have a public, so. I think the big thing is, of course, the light pollution, which we talked about, the trees on that north side, along with potential infill with the city. I think were the 2 biggest concerns that I heard tonight. If you guys can take a look at those for us. As part of, if we approve it this evening, okay? If there's no other questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2217, the landing.
One question.
Oh, sorry.
The green space lot far east, is that numbered as a lot? I don't know that I have that sheet. I just want to make sure.
You won't believe this probably when they're trying to print out the green space sheet today. It was
Oh, really?
impossible. It's up there.
You were not having.
Oh, it's the whole, it's like a big flag lot. I got you.
There you go.
I got you. They have one more question for you on your sewer. It looks like the whole thing's called out as a force main. How are you? How does that work?
All individual pumps.
But the main doesn't gravity, right? So is there a pump on the main, if you will?
No, it's a low pressure sewer.
Okay.
You do it all the time, build this, then they just did one in the Peter.
I was looking for your lift station. I couldn't find it. All right, that's it.
All right, so I would entertain a motion for 2217, the landing preliminary plat at 8931 Greenhouse Road. And it's 40 lots, just over 10 acres, and it is zoned R3 single family.
Also the adjacent street agreement,
Which would be no,
they're doing 50 foot of right of way on Greenhouse, no fee in lieu, and then they're doing the street improvements for
full street build out.
80 feet.
This is John. I motion to approve subdivision 2217 landing preliminary plat adjacent street agreement with consideration of light pollution and tree screening on the north side.
This is Ben, I'll second.
Motion and a second. It does include the preliminary plat and the adjacent street agreement, correct, John?
Yes.
Is there anyone opposed? Look, guys. All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 2215, the Pines Phase 5 through 7 preliminary plat. It is at 11501 Walters Road. It is zoned R3 single family, 142 acres, 207 lots. Cooper Mitchell is the owner. If you'll give us an overview, please.
Michael Berry with Schuber Mitchell Homes, here to present preliminary plat of Pines, phases 5 through 7. 205 lots, and this is a continuation of phases 1. And Anderson Engineering is an engineer on record, and Micah Souter is here as the primary engineer for all of this.
Thanks. Diane, are you gonna do this one?
Yes, this one is me. This is the Pines Phase 5 through 7. They do already have preliminary approval for the Pines Phase 4, which is over here, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of where in the backyard. And Walters Road is over here, and the Pines Phases 1 through 3 that are currently completed are in this area right here. So they will be connecting into the Pines Phase 3. It is for this particular phase, this is 63.35 acres on the west side of Walters Road, and it is going to be connecting from Walters Road over here to CP Rakes Road, with the completion of, it was Short Road, but apparently our department said, no, you can't use that when it crosses Walters Road. So they have a new proposed name called High West Road. So any reference to Short Road in this particular subdivision is, what was that? I'm sorry. High West. The newest plans that I received, it is High West. And they are doing 206 single family lots. And there are also 3 detention ponds with this particular project. One of the detention ponds is on this property that they also own, that is tract C. And I do have a better map of that pond up there in relation to phase 5. Then phase 6 and 7 will also have their own detention ponds that are also in y'all's packet. They are extending, like I said, Short Road / High West Road, or whatever it does finally end up landing on. They are completing they are providing, it is a collector, sorry, and it is 80 feet of right of way. So they will be dedicating the right of way and building the road. I will show the adjacent street agreement here shortly. There is kind of a weird spot between where it connects with phase 4 because they do not own this property on the north side, so have to do a little connection.
Is that where the road tapers there?
Yes, so they're trying to make it work so that it'll widen back out to the full part since now they own both of the lots. So through here, they only own on the south side. They are still building a full width street. But obviously they can't do the entire width of it right now. Because they don't own that property. And they are also providing right of way for Wolverine, which runs north-south. It's gonna divide lots 5 and phases 5 and 7. So they will be constructing a full to local width street, but they are providing the full 80 feet of right of way along the streets. Utilities, there is an existing water main on in the Pines phases 1 through 4, and they're also connecting to a water main along CP Rakes Road, which is the water and sewer department wanted them to have it where it's connected on both sides. Like I said, they're actually, in the drainage, it says 2 detention ponds. Technically, there is a third one there on track C. And they are building the 10-foot trail on both sides of Short Road, or whatever it will be named in the future at some point. And this adjacent street agreement. And like I said, they are doing the 10-foot trail on both sides of Short Road and both sides of Wolverine. For the adjacent street agreement, let me zoom in so you guys can read that. I sure don't expect you to read it when it was that tiny. Only technology would cooperate. For Short Road, High West, whatever, the developer is providing 80 feet of right of way for the construction of Short Road and will include 38 feet of pavement, curb and gutter, back of curb, with a 10-foot trail along both sides. And there will be a transition area, Joey, where you notice that it kind of tapers down and is a little funky over there, to get from the existing width of 26 feet back of curb, and that's just until whenever that northern property that they don't own develops eventually. To the proposed width of 38 feet back of curb. The existing asphalt paving will be the closest 8 feet of the development milled. And then, of course, street lights at all intersections and street trees are provided with the preliminary plat also. Now, I did have one question for you guys, so it could either be Michael or Anderson. But will all of the right of way for Short Road be dedicated with the phase 5, or are you gonna do it per phase? We prefer you do it with phase 5, so that way we have it all the way if the world explodes. Oh, you'll do the whole thing with phase 5? Okay, perfect. That was a question I just wanted clarified.
Who owns on the west side of CP Rakes?
I don't know, it's in
It's
the
not,
county.
it's not you, right?
No, it's county.
So how are we building the T of the road? Onto that property, not showing right of way acquisition? You got some curb you're building over there, it looks like. Some drainage.
Name is Micah Souter with Anderson Engineering. So yes, on that corner over there. To be honest, I'm not 100%, but I will circle back on that. I was not the original associate with this project, but we're definitely looking to the case. I don't know if Diane, you have any further information or what is.
We're doing some grading. It looks like we're doing all kinds of stuff on the neighbor.
Yeah,
This one's theirs. They own this piece of property.
Okay. Then that leads me to my next point. What about a drainage easement for all the stuff that we're putting onto a different property? Like the detention pond offsite, that pipe.
There isn't a detention pond offsite.
It's on their property, but it's not within,
It's not this
it's in track C.
different piece of property.
The track C property for the offsite detention pond that you mentioned will be covered by detention, by a stormwater drainage easement. It doesn't show it on this drawing, it doesn't appear. But yes, that is the.
I didn't see it anyway.
Track C.
Track C.
North of what's.
Yeah, it's north.
Back up here and go to this. Mountain.
I'm mostly concerned with the road and the road improvements on the neighbor.
This is track C.
This whole thing over here.
Yeah.
All to the north.
Because I guess, let's just say it gets built, they're not gonna own any of those lots anymore. It looks like you have street drainage, right? It's also combining with their subdivision drainage that's on somebody else's.
All that's what's on CB rigs is draining east to tie in. So it wouldn't be discharging from that road off to the west onto anyone that way.
No, I'm talking about the detention pond and the big pipe underneath short,
It's already in almost a riverbed.
right? But it's still somebody else's property.
This is, well, this is still currently their property.
Right, but when they sell all the lots, it's not gonna be.
Yes, it would. That's still part of that track C.
Yes, but they don't own the southern property that they're developing. anymore. That'd be like me putting a pipe onto your backyard.
That's you putting a pipe into the ditch that's already in my backyard.
Just bring it up, man. Who owns the
I'm not
pipe?
sure, I'm not sure what you're saying, Joe.
Well, who owns the pipe? Let's put it this way. Be the POA or whoever keeps that. Right? So now you have,
Would be, and then we're always a third party beneficiary on it.
To have offsite drainage easements. for
Right.
this.
and now your sheet flow and stuff too, it looked like to that pond on the north, but he said he's got them, so that's why I was bringing it up. It could get sticky.
Yeah, no, the pond to the north is 400 feet, another 60 feet down. 60 might be an exaggeration, but
What does the elevation have to do with it?
You're referring to the offsite pond.
I'm not sure what they're asking about now.
They're wanting to know about a drainage easement for things that are not.
You have private water going across somebody else's property in the future, let's say they sell it, doesn't matter. I think there should be drainage easements there. It's just something I think we need to look at before we fully approve it.
I'm confused. Where are you saying this private property? Because what I'm hearing them say is that's all.
Yeah, I'm confused, Joy, what you're saying.
But it's not your same private property.
They could sell it tomorrow when they develop all these lots. Those lots are gonna sell to individuals. They no longer own that property. Now you have all of this stormwater from that subdivision that's going on to somebody else's property. Very
Assuming
common,
they sell track C, correct?
very, well, even if they owned it, they don't own the southern part anymore.
So then-
Lorraine's tracking me, she understands. Yeah.
Okay. So once they sell it, you're saying those
I'm
private.
still confused because they're developing this all as one part of
It's a
the.
separate tract. Separate tract, Tony's. Okay, that's fine.
The separate tract needs to have those easements accounted for on that tract, so.
Yeah, all the storm, I mean, all
He
the.
was saying that.
Yes,
That's my point. There's no easement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Yeah.
And then. The improvements that are done on someone else's property, that's.
Construction.
I hope I don't need to explain that. Right there, west of that western property. line.
No, I agree. They need to have an easement all along for maintenance and stuff.
That would need to be right away though. The road.
So
Have y'all talked to the property owner?
to the property owner to
West.
of this.
As far as I am aware, I've not been involved. I do know that this is just shortly upstream of Army Corps jurisdictional and floodplain waters. We're not there, but we are relatively quickly, stormwater runoff gets up into what is considered perennial flow. Stormwater, so it already experiences high levels of flow. We're matching existing drainage patterns here.
It's just the function of different properties.
We should.
You good, Joey?
I'm good now. Lots of trees.
Those trees like over the road.
I had one question on lots 1 and 17. Are those gonna face Keepsake?
No roads will be on Wolverine or Short Road.
No driveways?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
There will be driveways on CP Rake though.
I was about to ask.
And I hadn't gotten that far. No lot shall have direct access to.
Why are they coming off of CP roads?
Where else are they gonna? What's that designation?
Why are they local?
Just, you said local. Still don't like it.
No.
We have done everything in our power the last 10 years to not have driveways off of streets like that.
It's in the code, right? Or it just says material collectors or what's the code state?
Material and collectors.
That's what I thought.
I'd originally saw those and then I didn't say anything. I was more worried about the others. Anything else from any of the commissioners? Did you go through the adjacent street agreement? Sorry.
Oh,
So the thing with CP Rakes is that's not even designated as local, it's just undesignated road. And that's the county line.
What are they doing the improvements?
and they are doing a fee in lieu for future street improvements on Wolverine Drive.
That was my next question.
They're not doing improvements in CP Rake.
Yeah, wait.
That's what she asked.
Okay. I was like, wait.
They're leaving it great.
CP Rake.
They're not doing this.
Doing right of way.
I mean, they show curb and gutter and everything at the T.
The CP Rigs is going to be improved. It's not to a full typical street section. It's like 20 foot wide with 2 foot paved shoulders on either side for the length of the property, I believe is the current cross section.
These plans were just dropped off on Friday, so I actually haven't looked at them.
Okay, so something better and then how?
Sounds like 24 feet. Was the shoulder gravel?
The shoulder should be paved.
24?
I believe so.
I see every street section, but CP ranks.
Are there any additional questions or comments? I think you need to verify, I guess, the CP Rakes portion, right? That you just got it on Friday?
Yeah,
Okay.
And it wasn't included in the That's been included in their adjacent street.
Along with the drainage right away. Catch that right?
Easement.
Yeah. The easement.
So they're asking for phases 5 through 7.
Mhm.
And they're asking for a preliminary plat and adjacent street agreement.
I have one more question on short to the east through phase 4. Are there plans on that, like to make it match back to the west eventually?
So when the property to the north of phase 4, if they ever sell and develop, that's not owned. So when they sell, that's when that become a 3-lane. There'll still be a slight transition between 4 and 5, but that's still that quarter-mile from both Walters and then Wolverine intersections.
One thing to look at, it looks like their sidewalk on the north side is short on their portion where it's tapering. It looks like it just consistently follows the back of curb. We probably want to set that up where it'll tie in to the future. You know what I'm saying? You were there. Looks like it's.
So the 10-foot there with the new does tie in. Would be where it'd be this final location.
Ties in right now. I got you.
Correct, 'cause I don't think
And
there's,
then when they develop to the north of this one, fix that.
well, there's no sidewalk on the north side of Shore, I don't think.
Okay.
On phase 4. So as part of when that expands, you'd get the sidewalk on the north side as well as tie in that curb and gutter.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's in the right spot. It's supposed to be here and not here. Because their road narrows, I think they just offset 5 feet from the back of the curb and put the sidewalk in, but we probably want it wherever that future road is gonna be. That's it. Don't wanna have Ben tell us about sidewalks then.
Have to get his dirt bike out. All right, if there's no additional questions or comments, that I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2215, the Pines phase 5 through 7.
And then completion. That comments from the board just need to be double checked, so.
What you wanna do? You got stuff that you, what on?
Sure,
What you want?
this is Joey, I'll make a motion to approve subdivision 2215, the Pines phases 5 through 7 preliminary plat. And the adjacent street agreement with contingent upon addressing all the staff's outstanding comments. And again, we need to look into the right of way and the full section on CP rakes. Need to make sure that all of our improvements around the taper on short are gonna be in the ultimate build out spot when that road gets widened. We need to look at drainage easements for offsite properties and conveying stormwater through offsite properties. And I think that's it, right?
I'll second all of that.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you guys. Good luck. All right, under other business subdivision 2121 Meadow Ridge, adjacent street agreement discussion. Northwest corner of Pillow Road and Seba Road. It is zoned R3 single family, 43 acres, 165 lots. Is the applicant here to walk us through the discussion?
I am the applicant's representative.
Long way from home tonight.
Yes, sir.
Your name?
My name is Tim Lemons with Lemons Engineering. And in preparation of the adjacent street agreement, there were quite a few questions that came up, and staff has been very good to work with us to try to get those questions answered. Just and I can't speak for staff, but I think we thought it would be a good idea to spend a few minutes tonight to discuss this and then finalize our adjacent street agreement accordingly. And not to jump ahead, but under staff recommendations, which I believe is on page 3. Don't really have a lot really that's in contention. One item I would like to discuss with you if I could is the sidewalk width on Keller Road. Whereas Seba is a major right of way, which we're having to dedicate quite a bit of that. Do you have a map that shows that right of way dedication? If you're familiar with Seba. If you're familiar with Seba, we're at the intersection of Seba and Keller, the road goes due west, and then when it gets to the end of this 40-acre tract, it makes a real sharp turn to the right. And so basically, there we go. That's a very good illustration right there. That shows where we are indicating the necessary right of way and creating more of an outfall from that southwest corner. We try to eat some of the burden when Seba gets improved. So for one, I could see the 10-foot walking trail down Seba, of course, 100-foot right of way, but coming up Keller there. We would like to reduce that down to 5 feet if we could. Of course. That is up to this morning.
Is there a hardship or is it just?
Just driving out there and looking at it, I mean, it's everybody's crystal ball is hazy at best, but I could see development on Seba continuing and going forward. I don't know there's a whole lot of developable property north of our development on Keller. We start getting to do some lower areas, and I just don't know if it's warranted, I guess. I believe you do have a master plan that calls for a 10-foot on Keller up there, but I'm wondering if maybe we might could get staff to revisit that master plan, because I just my opinion, going north of there is not as conducive to development as other areas. And the only other items that we have is continuing on the minor arterial designation for Keller is 90-foot right of way. During one of our past discussions with the city, it was discussed that we could do a 40-foot right of way on our side. And that's what our entire design is based on. And we've got plans. Well, they've been through 2 reviews, and we're going to be coming back for a 3rd review on our final design, hopefully in the next week or 2. And taking that extra 5 feet out of that right of way is going to be detrimental to our development, because we were going off previous comments of 40 foot instead of 45. But as far as the improvements on Keller and on Seba, the 26 feet with the gravel shoulders, no issues there. The sidewalks, except for what we discussed, street lights, street trees, all that is good. The only other item is the cost share on Seba, and that's something that we'll have to get with staff to try to hammer out what that number might be. So there'll be some future discussions on that. So really, I guess our biggest items here tonight are the 10-foot sidewalk width and the right of way on Keller.
And the, yeah. I mean, I understand that they gave you the wrong width, but is the information that's published wrong?
It was actually stated in the comments wrong, and then they have laid out all of the plans.
Sure.
And it was just found, what are we on, submittal 4?
Yeah, the last submittals when it was brought up. I mean, things happen, I understand. It's.
Can we look at the master street plan in that area?
Share my screen. Figure out where I'm going.
And I do appreciate staff and their comment, the 40-foot right of way dedication would be acceptable, so I appreciate them wanting to work with us on that.
On a limit line. There we go.
Can we go up more to the north? Yeah, like, how much further do we have?
All the way to Herbal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's not ideal, especially at the intersection there. Is the dash green like a trail?
Yes. I'll turn those off a second to.
No, I thought it was.
No. A second. Okay, there we go.
If that's the scale, then our argument over 5 or 10 feet is really a small issue.
No, and can we turn the trails back on?
I
I'd like
want to see that if that sidewalk was part of the trails, though, we're asking. We had a big discussion recently about.
It'll apply to the park at
Trail, right?
the southeast corner of.
But it's not bad.
Can we?
All right.
Can I say?
Is this a 10 or 12?
10-foot trail.
The green or 2 foot?
Blue is 12.
What's the minimum depth?
I don't think it's- this is just-
Okay.
About a couple points before it's submitted.
I have something just to talk about. I don't know if this is the right decision, but just want to talk about it. The problem with dedicating the right of way is it comes into your corner lots, your side lots there, which also have a bigger setback. So that's further shrinking the buildable area of those lots, right?
That has been taken into account on our latest design.
What is your latest design show?
We have the same amount of buildable space on the corner lots that we do on the interior. We made the lots extra.
Oh, okay. I got you. I mean, I hate that we're in this situation, but. I mean, really what's best for the city is to have the 45 feet of right of way and a 10-foot trail.
I will also mention that if you go to the subdivision plan, and I saw this, when did I send you that email? Last week, I guess. There are hammerheads instead of cul-de-sacs
Oh,
signed in this.
I have good news for you.
Looks like there's cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac? Yeah,
The cul-de-sacs are replacing the hammerheads.
right. We've never done.
Black hammerhead.
hammerhead. We've only in a subdivision.
I talked to,
Awesome.
I was able to talk my client into losing a couple of lots, but yeah, this is not our plan here. I'm not sure.
That's
where-
it. But this was
Oh, that's not it?
this was the original concept.
I'm just gonna say there is some setbacks on. So where I was going with that is I would, in the best interest of the city. I think the 45 feet is in the best interest, especially at this intersection. I also think that it's dead on the trails plan. The 10-foot, I think that's important too. So what I was gonna propose as a talking point is what about reducing the setback and going for some sort of variance on those lots to not burden them anymore? I don't know how you prove hardship on that, but
Already got 20-foot setback in the rear. On those lots, you reduce them, that's 15 feet, and you've got a major road going through there. That's right.
I don't like it either, Lorraine, but
I mean, a variance would still have to go through, we're not approving a variance, that would have to go through.
Well,
public
the reason why we also said 40 works is the section from a minor arterial to a major arterial. The difference is the amount of green space between your 3-lane road. Both the minor arterial and major collector are 38 back-to-back roads. It's your green space goes from I think it's 9 to 14 feet.
okay, well, that's, yeah. And I was wondering why there's so much green space between the back of this, the right of way essentially, and the back of Kurt.
And that's part of the reason why with 40, we can still make it work.
So here's the other question. When the neighbor comes in developing property to the east, what do you tell them?
45 feet.
Right.
Right, we've had to do adjustments all over. Where we only have 30 feet from the old master street plan and then we go.
There's more on one side, yeah.
You know, and so we just have to make that adjustment on that right of.
Okay, well, with that said, if the difference is just the green space, and I wasn't taking that into account. I would be okay with the 40. We're not losing any driving width or anything like that, right? Lane width, no, okay.
That impacted 10-foot trail.
However, I think the 10-foot trail is pretty important. Does that impact the 10-foot trail is the question.
If
No,
gotta go 10 feet, we'll go 10 feet. I mean,
he already shows 10 foot on his current plan. If you zoom back up,
And I don't know what this.
Yeah, we don't know what
exhibit A
version
is.
weight, level of burden weight.
this discussion item. They already show 10 foot that it fits. The key is making sure that with the half street, them paving 26. As proposed, that the ditch still drains. So usually, I mean, that's part of why you need some of that width is that interim half street improvements
The ditch on the
on the west side.
west side.
Between the 10 foot and where he paves. You'll have about 13 foot of pavement off his property line. And then you'll start the ditch.
Is that not being piped?
With your modified half street, that's part of what we're talking about. He's saying paving 26 feet, 2 foot gravel shoulders. Then it's a ditch line. With, pipes under culverts for the entrances. Then you're back up to the 10 foot trail.
You're saying 36 feet is the ultimate build out, right?
38 is back curb, back curb. So any expansion in the future, next would buy, they would do the pipe on the north side as needed.
West side.
West side, sorry. Do 4 foot widening on both sides with the curb and gutter.
There is curb and gutter.
Not on this.
When the property side develops, the section, so that's part of the half street improvements. The first one paves a wider section, he's paving 26. The next guy comes in, only paves 4 on both sides.
Oh, okay.
8. And then does curb and gutter on both, so he's eating all the pipe off, but none of the gravel.
Will be the same thing on SEBA as well.
It sounded different.
Oh. So that's on Keller Woody Pros. SEBA is a bit different because there is a 330 foot section that is not part of this property. And then shortly after that, part of the master street plan is to realign SEBA Road. Take that very sharp, stop 90, but a quarter stop 90. To do that, you want to smooth that curve out. So they're looking at indicating the whole 100 feet of that. And then we'd have to build the base. So that'd be the same thing as for all of SEBA. The end result when this is done is a 26 foot wide asphalt. And then. Here we need curb and gutter because with an arterial, the end back to back is 60 foot. So.
would like to point out too, something else that we discussed with staff, that where our road is coming out onto Seba. Soon after that, the road eventually, I mean, it makes another 90-degree sharp bend. That would also be a nice curve would be put in there when the property across the road develops.
That's where, when we look at what we're recommending is, there's gonna be a little bit of cost share, so. Where we'll help us with paying some of that on that 330 foot. But also we're have to build a brand new base for the whole road to realign it. At the end, the cost for gravel and asphalt wouldn't change whether it curved or didn't. It's actually a bit of a decrease in total asphalt. So I mean, more so share on that, building it out. But then if we're realigning here, obviously we're gonna realign west. So stopping the improvements just north of his entrance road. Because again, the assumption would be from there, you're gonna start to that taper to again. Smooth that curve out.
Anything we do north of our entrance road will be torn out. Soon anyway by someone else.
So what that cost share is between the city and them. We need cost estimates from
Yeah.
him, say, if there was no realignment, none of this, what would it cost for us to do the regular widening for the whole thing going around? Here's if we stopped here, what would it be? Here would it be, you know, and then there's that consideration with that realignment. There's a half acre parcel there in that corner between the existing road and the future. I mean, if we're gonna donate that, you know, so those actual number has to be finalized, but a lot of it is for him to finalize. We can approve this. He needs to know what to design, so then we can go back and actually review and then provide an end agreement for approval from you.
So that's a 40 on SEBA, 40-foot back to back. Is that what you
A
said?
major arterial is 60, 5 lanes.
60. Okay, I'd be interested if the 26 made the numbers work, because it seems like we're doing 26 on, what, is that Kelly? Yeah. And that's only a 40 or 38, whatever we decided there, so.
You'd be at 40 right away.
I mean, back to back,
Oh, 38.
38.
Sorry.
So we're adding a bunch more width that's supposed to be there on SEBA, so. But I know you'll review all the numbers. I'm just wondering if the 26 is actually apples to apples when we start looking at that. But that's up for you, for y'all to figure out. Back to the pillar. That's what we need to talk about, right?
I mean, he
10 foot,
he ultimately said he would agree to the 10 foot
Yeah.
if we stick with the 40 foot.
and we'll agree to the 40 that you were old on the. Are those the only two that we need to?
Yeah, everything else seems to be agreed to.
Okay.
The temporary section that is spelled out right there is what we have on our plan, so we're good with that. I'm sure the neighbors out there will be pretty proud when we get the asphalt down on Keller and Seba. I drove my white truck out there. My truck ain't white no more.
Wash it home, off on the way home, I guess.
They're gonna come around the corner and say, yay, and then it's gonna go to dirt and be that R90, go, no.
Any other discussion from any of the commissioners?
Does that make sense to everybody? What we talked about? Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right, there's the council meeting.
We'll have a few more items that didn't actually make it.
Oh, they're not on here. We can't talk about it.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
I just wanted to give you update on this day, that I don't know now. But the bill I had was the wrong one. Okay, I asked Garber to work on, we're having issues with open space on the PUD.
Yeah.
So they have prepared a draft, but I think that we still need some clarification. Staff, we did have a chance to get through it. Was this yesterday? Oh,
Yeah, it was yesterday.
okay, it's been a long day, seemed like it was last week. So staff wants to go through it, but I would like for you also, if you have a chance to go through it, email us your comments so that we can get a draft incorporated and to bring back to you. All the consideration.
Highlights, does it take out floodplain and detention?
This didn't exactly. It made requirements on, that is something that I want to look at. Along with utility overhead power line easements.
Easements, yeah.
That, and then also the retention ponds, we allow half of that to be used towards their green space. But I think that it should be limited on how much of that green space that it can count toward. If it counts to half, you know, of the green space, and you
hard
have
to
very
quantify.
little left. So.
What's like the one, No, it's just right down here across, was that by the substation or the apartments when they expanded? They used all the floodplain as their green space and it was in the very back and it's not even usable.
Well, they used their, anything around the building,
Yeah.
they used, and that's. Yeah, so I think that, I mean, it's not like that's really common usable activity space, you know?
So will you drop this in a separate document when you're ready, or in a separate folder so we can see it and let us know?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we comment it on Dropbox?
You can, no.
I'm gonna
You
say
mean
if
as a-
everybody can comment on it, and maybe this is a Brian question, if everybody can look at the same document with comments.
Are we talking about the capability or are we talking about FOIA?
No, I'm
No,
talking
just
more,
markup of what they, you know.
do they all mark up the same document, or should they all mark up their own document? We can gather comments.
I think it is probably best that, at least from a FOIA standpoint, that each person do it individually, then you guys compile it, so that it doesn't create the appearance of
So
some
send
sort of
us an
meeting,
email.
right?
Yeah.
So just email comments to Kayla and Lorraine.
Put it planning at Centerton AR, US, and then we all.
We'll get direction. How's that? Thank you.
I'll send you guys an email.
Okay. Bill, where are you? Help me out on this, the House bill on the,
Airbnbs?
well, what do you call it? They're not Airbnbs. It is it's held back over spring break and the owner of it's making changes. But the 60-day
Yeah.
approval of plans, it did pass the House and it's going to the Senate. There was a comment made that they had taken out some of the the harder things that would be, to deny it. So basically in 60 days, if it's not ready to approve, then we've got to deny it, but we need basis on what to deny.
If it doesn't meet the code, can't we?
But that means they're gonna
Get that code ready.
We
Well,
gotta
here's
get
me,
it
we,
done.
what we're gonna do is the burden on all the developers is gonna skyrocket as well as on Kayla, the new planning assistant, because 60 days denied, you didn't meet
Mhm.
Title 16, Title 9, Title 14, Title whatever.
I think their intention of making it easier on the developers to get something approved and ready.
Why do we ask for another
It's gonna be
application fee?
harder, actually.
And so it's gonna be more difficult and more expensive on them. Cause we'll have to have everything done.
Depends on how their engineers do.
And then. Other than that, there's the work session. Meeting next Tuesday. 6 o'clock, and we're going to start with basics. Sure, basically looking at the vision statements of the city, and so y'all are welcome to attend.
Who's it between?
It's same as before, same group as
Council and
before.
planning?
And I guess some other staff will be there as well. But again, the intent is to start going through if and when we need to update the comprehensive plan and the master street plan based on the direction from the council, if you will.
Is there more education with this one or no?
Tim are both coming again.
Okay.
I think it'll be more, the education will be more around what's the comprehensive plan, what's it lead to, stuff like that. So there will be some education, I think, on there, a little bit more than last time.
I
So
think
that-
it'd be great for y'all to come. I mean, it's,
So that's next 6 o'clock, right? Same room?
Yes, it's not right here.
We do have a planning commission meeting on 4/4. If you can't be here, let us know. There's a council meeting on 4/11. And there's a tech review meeting on the 24th. Anything
there's
else?
also, hey, Bill, there's that training. For planning and zoning on 4/19.
I'll send it to all of them.
Okay,
If you want to sign up, just tell me and I'll sign you.
and it does have a Zoom link to it. this time, so you don't have to actually go to Little Rock. I don't know if anyone will be going, but there is a Zoom link. And it's always a great set.
The tech review Thursday the 27th.
24th. I'll just read what was on the.
I'm like, it's not off to me, so I'm like, wait, I want to make sure. So it's on the.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you, guys. We're still here.
Yeah, it's up, Devin.
He wasn't here close.
Oh.